Affordability has been a struggle, and even with interest rates finally dropping, buyers are still hesitant to jump into the market. Is now your best chance to buy, or are you headed towards a home buying nightmare? Stick with me as I break down the market trends, and we'll go over the 3 key factors to decide if fall 2024 is your time to buy. So if you're like most people I've been speaking to, you think the spring is the best time to buy, or waiting at least spring, maybe even summer next year. You may not be wrong. Everyone's buying situation is different. I want to go over 3 reasons why the fall 2024 could be the sweet spot for buyers. Now I have 3 reasons up here. The competition is waiting for the market to improve. Let me go over to your next slide and show you that. So Fannie Mae did a survey, and only 17% of people lately think it's a good time to buy. That means 83% of people think it's a bad time to buy. That's obviously the vast majority. If 83% of people are waiting that probably could buy but don't want to, or think it's a bad time, that means there's much less competition in the market. Trust me when I tell you, a seller who has had their home on the market for 90 or more days, when that buyer finally comes around, they are ready to make a deal. With more competition in the market, let's say only 50% of people thought it was a bad time to buy, there'd be a lot more buyers in the market. Sellers wouldn't be quite as desperate as they are right now. All right, so second bullet point here, affordability has started to get better. That doesn't mean it's great, but it has started to get better. I want to show you a quick slide here talking about the percentage of people who say mortgage rates will go down the next 12 months. So they have gotten better, but as you can see, more and more people are starting to think interest rates will continue to go down. As that happens and more people perceive the interest rates as going to go down in the future, they will start coming in the market. So see bullet point number 1. If you want to get a good deal while the competition is low, now might be the right time, because as interest rates continue to go down and more people perceive the market as getting better, more competition will enter the market. Bullet point number 3. Inventory is up compared to last year. Now, I've done several videos on inventory. I'm going to link my market update videos right here. If you want to get a little bit more deep dive into inventory, click those and check them out. I go into much more detail in there, but just know inventory is up dramatically from this time last year, giving buyers way more choice. So thinking about this, really the biggest and most important factor for each individual I speak to is affordability. That's the crux of the argument. That's what I really want to dive into. 3 key points about what's happening in today's market and how that affects buyers and affordability specifically. So the first up is your mortgage payment. And here I have a quote from Mike Simonson from Altos Research, and says, even as mortgage rates have fallen in the second half of the year, there's very little sign of the sales rate improving yet. It doesn't appear that home buyers are particularly motivated by payments that are 14% cheaper now than they were in May. That's big. So mortgage rates continue to fall, and when mortgage rates fall, your mortgage payment gets cheaper. So I want to put some actual numbers to that though. So looking at last fall in October, interest rates were averaging right over 8%. So if you were going to buy a $400,000 house, which is fairly average here in DFW, maybe a little higher than median, your monthly payment, and this is payment interest only, would have been just under $3,000. Okay? Well, that same $400,000 house in today's market in October of 2024, average interest rate right now of 6.53, that's a $407 savings. So your payment's only be $25.36 versus $29.43 1 year ago. That's $407 a month in savings and $146,000 over the life of the loan. So I want to show that to you one different way as well. Let's say you're shopping with a fixed payment amount in your head. Hey, I can afford $3,000. Well, unsurprisingly, you go back and look at 2023, 8.03%, again, that's a $407,000 house. Now, if you take that same monthly payment and you go buy today, that's a $473,000 house. So you buy a lot more house. Now remember, and I haven't gotten to this point yet, I'll get next here, but the pricing has stayed similar. It's been pretty flat over this year. So while interest rates get better, you can actually buy a lot more house. Now, normally house prices go up over the year. So a drop in mortgage payment may not have gotten you that much more houses because they got more expensive. Well, this year is special, and it is an important time to consider Because as the prices have stayed flat, but interest rates have now come down, you can afford more house. That extra $70,000 could be an extra bedroom, more square footage, a larger lot. There's a lot of different extra benefits, or maybe even a better neighborhood that you can afford now because the interest rates have gotten better. Now, I also wanted to put down here at the bottom, difference in home price affordability. Obviously, it's an extra $65,000. Now, however, if you keep that house over 10 years and we're using an average home price appreciation of 4% a year, that is an additional $96,000, 97 if you round up, in equity that you will gain. Remember, that's extra. You will already have gained some off the 400,000. This is an additional 96,000 because you're starting at a higher price. When you start at the 470 versus the 407, you will make more over the next 10 years if home prices continue to go up. That is a smart financial decision. The second point I want to talk to you about is price. Now, I'm not going to go super deep into the actual pricing right now. If you want to check that out, I have some other videos where I go super deep into that. I'm going to put a link up here. That way you can really get in depth. I don't want to overrun this video with pricing talk. I want to arm you with the knowledge on what affects price. Why do the prices move? And what makes this market so special? Now, if you're watching this video, you're already ahead of the game because you probably understand the basic supply and demand of the economics of the pricing. Well, that's what I really want to dive into is supply and demand and how those move and affect home prices. So first off, I want to show you that the number of homes for sale are still going up. Now, I have a last couple years here, and you can see there's a normal trend that you can see. We had a very normal market, 17, 18, and 19, these three up at the top, very similar in how many homes were actually for sale. And then in 2020, you saw this huge dip, and now we have this second set down here, which is much lower as homes were just flying off the market. Well, just like 2020 was more of a bridge year to lower the number of homes for sale, it's looking like 2024 is going to be that opposite bridge going up. So the number of homes for sale is continuing to rise, meaning we have more supply. Here's another quick look at that graph shown in total instead of all at once. So you can see in 2017, 18, and 19, we were slowly rising, and then we had this huge dip, and now we're rising again. And in 2024, we're looking to actually start to eclipse 2019 in the actual total number of homes for sale, which is kind of crazy that we're getting there. So the number of homes for sale is more than it has been really ever in DFW. We've never seen this much actual supply. Now let's talk about demand. So we know supply is at an all-time high. Well, this is showings per listing. So it's a rough estimate of buyer demand. And obviously the more buyers are going to see houses, showings per listing, the more demand there is. As you can see, 2024 has been very low. It's not the lowest, but it's pretty close as of right now. In September, October, 2019 was a little bit lower back when we peaked again. But the difference is we saw this rebound in 2019 going into 2020. We're not sure we're going to see that here this fall. We could, by the end of the year, have some of the lowest showing numbers we've had in a very long time. So putting those together, you have high supply and low demand. That would dictate that pricing should be falling. Well, I think the fact that it has stayed so flat is telling you everything you really need to know about the pricing in DFW. Home prices have been described as being sticky, meaning that sellers, they don't lose money. If you bought a house 2, 3, 4 years ago, you want to make money on that sale when you sell it. And if someone's telling you, oh no, you need to drop the price lower than what you paid for it or pretty close, most sellers aren't going to go for that. So home prices are very stubborn about dropping. They only drop when they really have to. 2007, 8, and 9, those were really freaky years because the problem in the economy was the housing. And the foreclosures really drove that. We're not having a foreclosure crisis right now. That's a big misconception or a big clickbait title in the news right now, but that's not what's happening. So a lot of sellers are sitting on more equity than they've ever had before. And so they don't really have to sell. And if you don't have to sell and people are telling you you might lose money in the sale, what are you going to do? You're going to hold on to the house. Or you're going to put it for sale and you're not going to do the price drops that you need to get it sold. What does this mean for pricing? Pricing has been very stubborn and it's been very flat in DFW. In fact, I think we're about 0% year over year in price gains. It's gone up and down throughout the year, but what could happen is, as we've seen, if mortgage rates continue to go down and buyer demand starts going back up, homes are going to start coming off the market. And as buyer demand goes up, what do you think is going to happen to pricing? Just keep that in mind. If more buyers hit the market, meaning demand goes up and supply will go down, home prices will definitely go up. Trust me when I tell you, because I've lived through it, sellers will gladly take way more than their house is probably actually worth, but they have a very hard time selling for less than they think it's worth. So lastly, when I talk about affordability, one of the things that I really want to make sure is talked about is seller concessions, or the seller incentives when you buy a house. It's one of the reasons why I love new construction right now. I want to show you how powerful this can be. So let's take a look at a house that you could get either a $12,000 price reduction on or a $12,000 rate buy down. So when you look at this, on the left-hand side, we have our $12,000 off the sales price. 6.5% interest rate that we've been talking about. Your payment and interest is about $24.52. Pretty in line with what we were looking at earlier. Now, your sales price, if you were to leave it at $400,000, but take that $12,000 and apply it towards a point buy down, you could buy 3 points, just about $12,000, and your payment would be $118 less per month. Now, I realize that's not like $500, $600, $700, but $120 a month is a pretty decent amount of money that you're going to save. Think about all the other things you can do in a month with another $118. Well, over the life of the loan, this adds up to $42,527 that you saved. So $30,000 more than you actually put in towards the $12,000. So you made a pretty good decision here, putting it towards the payment versus just the sales price. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about this. And when you start looking at new construction, you'll see that it's even better. So keep in mind here that this is just $12,000. We can get you with an FHA loan up to 6% of the sales price. So a $400,000 house could be $24,000 in savings if you can find the right deal. It's rare to find a seller that's going to max out your concessions, but it does happen. One of the places I'm seeing it more and more frequently is new construction. So a lot of people think they can't afford new construction, but with the current incentives right now, they are buying your rate down in some cases to 2.99 or 3.99%. If I were to plug those numbers into this chart, just think of how much extra money you'll save even with a higher sales price. When we think about housing, the price is important, but the monthly payment is more important when you're considering your monthly affordability. It makes sense, right? Putting all this together, I think the fall of 2024 could be a fantastic time for you to purchase. Here's a quote from Greg McBride, the chief financial analyst of Bankrate. He says, "It's one of those things where you should be careful what you wish for. A further drop in mortgage rates could bring a surge of demand that makes it tougher to actually buy a house." As of right now, as I've shown you, prices have been stagnant. But if more buyers enter the market and the supply goes down and the demand goes up, prices go up. Last time we saw that, even with today's current interest rates, or even if they drop even more, that could surge quite a bit and make it even harder to afford a house. Hannah Jones with Realtor.com says, if lower mortgage rates spark more buyer demand than inventory can keep up with, then prices may climb once again, eliminating the impact of the lower rates. So here's two chief economists of these very large corporations, and they're both saying the same thing. If more buyers enter the market, it will put an upward pressure on pricing. How much? I have no idea. I don't want it to be super significant like it was in 2021. That was not good for the market. But if pricing does outpace demand, we could see a very negative impact on buying again here in DFW. Hopefully that doesn't happen. However, if you want to get ahead of the curve, you can always refinance your rate later. Be very clear when I say this. I'm not one of these people that's saying, marry the house, date the rate, or whatever that saying was, because that put a lot of people in a very bad position. What I am saying, though, is if you can afford today's rates at today's pricing, it's a very smart decision to buy now. And then if mortgage rates do drop later, refinance and save even more. Because home prices are stagnant right now, but they will go up. So if you're in a position to buy now, I would highly encourage you to do so. Hopefully I've made it very clear that this could be a very good time for you to buy. I think we're in a sweet spot right now. And even if you go back and watch my last market update video, I even say it again, I think that window is closing. Now, I don't think it will be a bad time next year, but I think it won't be nearly as good as it is right now. If you are curious about whether or not it's a good time for you to buy, there's a link in the description below to schedule a call with me, Zoom call, phone call, whatever you prefer. We'll talk about your situation and whether it is a right time for you to buy right now or not. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic day.